The composer wrote a symphony. A symphony wrote the composer. Same 6 words, same word meanings, totally different sentence meanings. Because word order changed, which word is the subject? That obvious seeming fact, that meaning depends on how the parts combine, is the biggest small idea in the history of semantics. In 1892, Gottlob Frege wrote it down. The meaning of a whole depends on the meanings of its parts and how they are combined. Sounds obvious, isn't? It's the foundation of almost every NLP system that works, including the transformers you use every day. Last video we cracked open semantics, sentence meaning versus speaker meaning, truth conditions, reference, but we left one question hanging. How do individual word meanings combine into whole sentence meanings? That is the compositionality question. That's what Frege answered. Here's the puzzle. English has around 1 million words. But you produce and understand sentences you have never heard before, every single day. That is only possible if meaning is a function of a small toolkit, word meanings plus combining rules. Otherwise, you'd need to memorize every sentence, and nobody can memorize infinity. Today's 3 beats. First, Frege's principle. What compositionality actually says, and why it isn't as obvious as it sounds. Second, how compositionality shows up in NLP, from Lambda calculus to modern transformers. Third, where compositionality breaks, idioms, and why kick the bucket is the bug that proves the rule. Beat 1. Frege's principle in 1 line. The meaning of a complex expression is a function of the meanings of its parts and the way they are syntactically combined. 2 ingredients, part meanings, combining rule. Notice that word, function. Compositionality is fundamentally mathematical. Meaning is not a mystery, it is a function. It sounds obvious, but it wasn't the standard view when Frege wrote it. A lot of people thought sentence meaning was some holistic thing you couldn't decompose. Frege said no, meaning is systematic. You know the composer wrote a symphony. You automatically know a composer wrote the symphony. You automatically know the symphony wrote a composer, even when the last one is nonsense. That systematicity is compositionality. Chomsky's generative grammar quietly assumes compositionality. If you can write finite rules that generate infinite sentences, and you can, then meaning has to compose. Otherwise, infinite sentences would need infinite memorized meanings. Compositionality plus recursion is why finite brains handle infinite language. Beat 2. Compositionality in NLP. The classical framework is Lambda calculus. Each word gets a Lambda expression. Combining them is function application. Purrs is a Lambda expression waiting for a subject. The cat fills in that subject. The result is a true or false claim about a specific cat. This is what Jurafsky and Martin walk through in the Semantics chapter. Modern transformers don't use Lambda calculus. They use attention over word embeddings. But the abstract shape of what they do is still compositional. Each layer takes vectors representing parts, mixes them via attention, and outputs vectors representing bigger parts. That is Frege's principle wearing a different coat. This is why word embeddings work, why sentence embeddings work, why models generalize to sentences they've never seen. If meaning is compositional, and a model builds vectors compositionally, then the model can handle any new sentence made from the same parts. That is not a coincidence. It's Frege 1892 doing the heavy lifting inside every deployed NLP system. Beat 3. Where compositionality breaks. Idioms. Kick the bucket does not mean kick a bucket. It means to die. You cannot derive die by combining the meaning of kick with the meaning of the bucket. The idiom is a fused unit, meaning stored as one lump instead of composed from parts. English is full of these. Spill the beans, break a leg, piece of cake. Every one of them fails Frege's test, and every one of them is memorized as a chunk, which means the compositional toolkit needs a second storage. A big vocabulary of frozen phrases that mean whatever they mean by convention, not by combination. So idioms are compositionality's exception. But, and this is the neat part, they prove the rule. The reason idioms feel weird is precisely that everything else composes normally. If nothing composed, idioms wouldn't stand out. They're the bug that proves the system. 3 takeaways before the quiz. 1. Frege 1892. Sentence meaning is a function of part meanings and how they are combined. Meaning is systematic, not holistic. 2. Lambda calculus formalizes it. Transformers implement it via attention. Frege's principle is why NLP models generalize at all. 3. Idioms are the exception. Kick the bucket doesn't compose, and that's what makes them memorable. The rest of language does compose. Quiz 1. What does Frege's principle say? A. Every word has one fixed meaning. B. Meaning of a whole is a function of its part meanings and how they combine. C. Sentences are memorized as whole units. Or D. Meaning depends only on the last word. B. Parts plus combining rule. Frege 1892 said, sentence meaning is a function of the meanings of its parts and how they are syntactically combined. 2 ingredients, word meanings, combining rule. That's it. And it's why the composer wrote a symphony and a symphony wrote the composer mean different things. Quiz 2. How does compositionality relate to transformers? A transformers ignore it. B. Attention layers implement compositional mixing. Frege's principle in different math. C. Only classical parsers use it. Or D. Transformers memorize sentences whole. B. Attention is composition. Each transformer layer takes vectors representing parts, mixes them via attention, and outputs vectors representing bigger parts. Frege 1892 wearing a different coat. That's why word embeddings work, sentence embeddings work, and models generalize to sentences they've never seen. Quiz 3. Why are idioms interesting for compositionality? A. They confirm every sentence is compositional. B. They're a fused unit, not composed from parts. And their weirdness proves compositionality is the norm. C. They mean the same as their literal reading. Or D. They're extinct. B. The exception that proves the rule. Kick the bucket means to die. You can't derive that from kick plus the plus bucket. Idioms are memorized as chunks, and they feel weird precisely because everything else composes normally. The bug that proves the system. Back to the puzzle. Sentence meaning is compositional. Words combine, meaning composes. Transformers ride that principle. But meaning in the sentence isn't the whole story of communication. 2 videos ago, we saw that speaker meaning can diverge from sentence meaning. That gap, where words say one thing and speakers mean another, is where pragmatics lives. Next video, we walk in. Next time, pragmatics. Why can you pass the salt isn't a question. Why understanding speaker intent is a different skill from understanding words. And why sarcasm is the joke that consistently trips up modern LLMs. Hit subscribe.